Okay, for this round, I didn't look at the names. I was just looking here at the questionnaire. I sent out the questionnaire regarding this this initiative. Do you believe? Now I misnamed it. It was called Read for a Better World. Do you believe? But it was actually the questionnaire for Close the Gap. Do you believe? And the reality here is we can see the problem. We know what the problem is. You can go out there. There's a ton of YouTube reports on it. You can go out and read from the Department of Education, their statistics. There are statistics on grade level performance. There's one of the most valuable here is there's a site called schooldigger.com. And you can go there and see any school in the United States, and you can see their expenditures per student. You can see how many students. You can see what percentage of their students qualify for a free or subsidized lunch. You can see how many students in each grade. You can see what the typical performance, the sort of standardized. When I say standardized, it's abstracted out performance so that you can compare them against schools. You can see what they are in every school. So, for example, in elementary schools in New Jersey, public elementary schools, there's 1,360 of those schools. When you go and look at the comparative performance, you'll see that now it's a ranked comparative performance, so it's a little difficult to sometimes see what does that actually mean. But you can see that there's a lot of schools that are performing at the what I'll call 97% upwards, but there's a ton of schools that don't make it to 1%. So when we look here and say we would go out and try to target from the bottom 10%, that's 136 schools. We know exactly which schools they are by name. We know exactly where they stand. And I can tell you, for example, we've talked about Camden. Now, the numbers I've always been quoting, not a single child that is attending a public elementary school that is not in the bottom 5%. Well, it turns out that 2 schools have broken out of that bottom 5%. One of them has managed to get to 10.5%, and one of them is around 9% or 8.5% or something like that, a percentile in the state. But there's none that are in the not or above the bottom 11%. So that gives us, when we look out there and say, oh, can we find 10 schools that are going to be suitable for the purpose of our pilot? There's our targets. And it's very interesting to see. You can see that if you just take the schools, forget about where they're located, just take the schools and start looking from the bottom up. And you can see Camden, Patterson, Asbury Park. There's a school district right next to Asbury Park that is even worse than Asbury Park, Parkwood or something like that. So these are not necessarily scattered out, but as you work up to the 20%, you can see that 19 school districts really have the lion's share of these failing schools.
And are there places in Morristown or Dover, which is near me, or not?
I could not say. I don't recall seeing those names pop up, okay. But you have to watch out because we have so many school districts. There's 550 school districts or something like that in New Jersey. And they don't necessarily have the names. Now, obviously, Morristown would be Morristown, but in the suburbs right around Morristown, there could be several school districts that have names that I wouldn't necessarily just recognize. Okay. But they're not dominant in the bottom 20%. Let's put it that way, because those you can see they're clustered in those probably around 7 or 8 school districts. But the other thing School Digger gives us is the ability to look back. We can go back year by year by year and take a look and see the performance of a school, how a school has done year by year by year. And it's very telling to see that these schools that are in the bottom 5%, the bottom 3%, they're there year after year after year. It's the same schools. Now, I sort of wonder, what do you say if you're a principal of a school, and this school has never been out of the bottom 3% of schools in New Jersey? What is somebody saying? Is not anybody saying, what do you mean you can't do it? I'm going to hire you. I need a new principal. You're coming into the school. And the odds are that principal is saying, don't expect me to change this to this. Don't expect me to have this school succeed. Why would you hire somebody like that? Why would you hire somebody that right off the get-go says, I can't do the job? Unless you've given up on the ability to do the job in the first place. A superintendent of schools in Camden, do they start off saying, well, the reason is you're not giving me enough money? Or I start off, here's all the reasons why we cannot succeed in Camden. I posted in this last week that the schools of Camden spend roughly $17,000 to $18,000 a year per student. Summit School District, which is one of the top school districts in New Jersey, spends less than $7,000 per student per year. So we're saying here, the school that's spending more than 2.5 times what the most successful schools are, cannot get out of the bottom 5% in the state. So this shows us it's not about the resources. It's not about what I call the supply side of education. It's about the demand side. And it's not about what the politicians are out there demanding. And it's not about what the teachers are demanding. And it's not about what the parents are demanding, because they're not the ones that have to put in the price to achieve the desired learning goals. It's the kids. Now we can argue why the kids aren't doing it. That's open to debate. But the bottom line is the kids are not putting in the learning effort that would be required for them to learn. And we can say all we want about the teacher, we can have the best teachers. We can go get the recordings of the best teachers out there. But in the end of the day, it's what got learned, not what got taught. So that's why we've got to focus on saying, how do we get the students to learn? And one of the other challenges that we have out there that we spoke about last week is this problem that kids in schools or in cities, like communities like Camden, Trenton, Patterson, Asbury Park, they come out of the welfare working class and they start schools with a 2-year deficit in mental maturity, if you would. And the schools start off that says, hey, this is the curriculum for first grade, you know, either get it if you can, but that's what I'm required to teach. So they're so far behind, they never get a chance to ever even see what it's like to be at grade level. And this is why we get the results that we get. But that's only part of it. Here is part of it. They start behind. But I'm not talking about the 10%, as we talked about last time. You will find in any environment, 10% of what I'll call survivors. They will succeed regardless of what environment you put them in. They will succeed based on their individual situation. They're anomalies, though. We can't go on the basis of them, not if we want to change the overall averages. Okay. The other thing here was we posted last time, and we have out there in a lot of materials, a lot of links to, for example, that teacher in California, Tim Vandenberg, who has turned his class around multiple years in a row. taking students in that have the worst prerequisites for success and having them leave a year later being much higher than average in their success rate. So they caught up 6 years and they did it in 1 year. But if you're a teacher, if you're faced with that situation, that the kids that march into your class in September, that no two of them are in the same place in their learning. So what's the foundation you're going to build on if no two have the same foundation? So that's part of what we have to come up with answers. And so far, I have not talked to anybody out there in the field that sees an answer that is not based on personalized learning, not based on each student building on whatever foundation they have, starting off with patching the holes in their own foundation, so that that they can start to build on that. Okay. Anyway, I'm talking again too much, and so I really want you guys here. There's enough material. This particular subject, the website says an awful lot about the background of why we're at and what we got to do and the problems. And we have papers out there that describe our concept, our strategy for how we think we're going to be able to get the initial schools to participate, and so on. That may need some fleshing out, but it's there. And it all, the real start of this is, do we all agree that if we've got all these schools around the country, and by the way, the number has gone up. I think I described in 2001, there were the percentage of schools or students that were performing in the bottom third, not in the bottom third because that a third is a third, but performing in that below a certain proficiency level, that number has gone up dramatically in the United States, as has the top end has gone up, but the bottom end, the percentage of kids in the bottom end has gone up significantly. So if I'm not sure of any other than these individual classes where Tim Vandenberg or Carol Dweck, professor from very famous professor from Stanford. She's the one behind the growth mindset theory, who went into a fourth grade in New York City that was one of the worst performing fourth grades in the entire state of New York, and turned them into one of the absolute single most top performing fourth grades in the entire state in 1 year. So we have those examples, those few examples, but I'm not sure of any widespread entire school districts, entire schools that have dramatically turned education around in any sustainable way. And so do we agree that if we could manage to take an entire school district or two, or if we could manage to take out 20 semi-random schools that are in the bottom 10% of the state and be able to see those entire schools, or at least the fourth grades of them, move up to be in the top 20% in the state, and do it for all of them, or do it at least for 8 out of 10, that would be unheard of. That would be like everybody, it would stop all those people researching education, those people that are studying, reporting on education. That's going to cause everybody to stop and go, huh? And cause a recalibration of what's expected, because it's going to take away the argument for all of those people that go year after year after year. What do you expect me to do? You can't do anything. It's beyond help. That's going to take away that excuse. You can't use that excuse if you've got a whole bunch of schools here that didn't just get extra money or anything like that, but that managed to close that gap in performance. Do we all agree here that would be monumental, a monumental achievement?
Well, I can agree with that. I think once we publicize this, I think the parents and the school boards will go crazy.
Mhm.
How do we get this to work in our schools, you know?
Exactly. That's it. And I think here we can contribute to that, because we can turn around and if we get the media going behind this, and we get the media asking, if others prove it can be done, what does that say about our school officials if we don't do it? Right. So that, because this is the thing that, we know the education industry is risk averse. They are the last ones that are going to go out there and experiment, because if they succeed, they're only going to be told, hey, you did your job. That's what you're supposed to do. And if they fail, why did you do that? Why did you take that risk? And boom, they're gone. So they're in a almost no-win situation if left to their own. So unless you can show them a path that they have very high confidence of success on, they're going to be very reluctant to go down that path. So that's why one of the big challenges is, you would think it's very easy to come and say, we're going to help you go from being in the bottom 10% to being in the top 20%. We can go and tell all these schools that we're going to do this. And I can tell you from experience that a lot of the schools are going to just go and say, risk, risk, risk. And they're going to say, well, maybe somebody else.
How about reward, reward, reward?
Yeah, but the problem is they don't see that. They just see the downside for it, because nobody's coming out and saying, we're going to give, we'll give you a big bonus if you achieve that. Now, having said that, a lot of times when you talk to the teachers, individual teachers are much more willing to take that kind of risk. That's why you see a Tim Vandenberg out there who managed to talk his principal into giving him a chance. But to go in, now I met here with the acting superintendent of schools, and I met with the mayors. Mayors love this idea. Mayors, the opportunity for them to get out in their public and saying, look, we're going to go out and take a shot at going, because what would it do to our community if our schools went from being in the bottom 10% of being in the top 20%? What's that going to do with the whole psyche of the population of our town? I can tell those of you who know New Jersey, it was Plainfield, New Jersey, where I met with the mayor and I met with the superintendent. The problem was on that the reason this was an acting superintendent is because they had fired the other superintendent, and the one who was acting superintendent was on the opposite side politically from the mayor, and we ended up all kinds of problems that stopped us from actually moving forward in that next step that year. But both of them wanted to do it. Both the mayor wanted to do it, the superintendent of schools wanted to do it, and some of the teachers that were queried on that said, wow, let's do this. But we couldn't get the politics out of the way. So I'll just tell you what the idea here is. If the problem is that the students' expectations of how much effort is normal, what types of scores are normal, and if they've gone through and experienced 3-4 years of just having heard no, 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 wrong, 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 and they've been passed the grade to grade, they're in the 4th grade, their expectation of what they have to do or what kind of grades would be acceptable to them are part of what's out of whack. So the part of here is we've got to get those kids to go and be fighting for this. We can't just go in and say, your teachers agreed we're going to do this. Now, come on, you guys have to do this, because the teacher can't do it. The teacher's not the one that's got to learn. The student's the one that got to learn. So we've got to go and get the students, every individual student there, committed. So that's where, if we've got 136 schools, if we can go out there and find a foundation or get it through our own district here, that we can come up and put a little bit of an incentive thing for the schools that get involved in a pilot. So we can go and approach to say, we're having a pilot with an attractive incentive package for these schools that are in the bottom 10%, but we can only take 10 schools. So that means we can only take about 8% or 7 or 8% of the schools of those 136 are going to be able to qualify. So we get them competing to qualify. How do you compete? Well, you got to get the signature that your superintendent of schools is behind it. You got to get the signatures that all your school boards are behind it and are going to support it all the way. You've got to get the principal of the school. You've got to get all the fourth grade teachers saying they are on board and they're going to do whatever it takes. You got to go and get the third grade parents, get them to sign, get all the kids to pledge that they will do it. All the kids that are going to be in fourth grade next year, get the Parent Teachers Association, get all those people saying we will do whatever it takes. So, and have them fight for the right to be in the pilot. If we can get them to fight for the right to be in the pilot, that's something here. Then we can put a program in place where those kids are reminded. Maybe we go and say that you all have to go and put your palm print on a piece of paper with a pledge that you sign across it. I will put in an hour a day. We talked last time about if you completed all the materials, for example, in Khan Academy, and if we believe you could do that in an hour a day, is every one of those kids willing to put that hour a day in? We have the tracking system, so we're able to see whoever we've got mentoring, coaching that student, we have them being able to see that whether or not the student is complying, and every morning get the students putting in, I'm pledging, I put my hour in yesterday, I pledge I will put at least an hour in today. And in that way, just keep that psyche that going. And if we get 10 schools, there's a good chance we can go out and get some NFL players, some NBA players, some captains of industry out of the state to go and visit those 10 schools and do the rah, rah, rah on the kickoff for those kids. So we get them really excited and going. And then being able to have the Rotary clubs be able to provide mentor coaches. So we tie it back to a Rotary program. Hal, you can probably speak to this. What do you see as the value to a Rotary club to have the whole community, to be able to rally the community around these kids in this school? You're representing our neighborhood, our community, and Rotary's the rallying factor. What that could mean.
It's got to be great for the Rotary just to get their name up there. You know, it's like, you know, spell my name right when it's in the publicity. Make sure it says Rotary every chance you get.
Yep,
and
exactly.
And it's got to make a big impact on those local Rotary clubs. That's right.
And it's going to make those members of those Rotary clubs feel 10 feet tall.
Right.
Because the media, when we start this off, in addition to going here and getting the kids to pledge, getting everybody else, is if we can get the excitement around the competition to compete, the competition to be able to be part of the pilot, that already is a media, something there for the media to sink into. Hey, our school is competing for this chance to participate. We don't even have to wait to get this thing started. Just the fact of them competing to participate to demonstrate that they can go from the bottom 10% to the top 20%, just for that privilege to try, that we can get the media going. And once we get the media going, we can come up with a way to sort of make it like the ongoing race, to be able to show how strongly are the different communities running pep rallies behind their kids and encouraging their kids on? How actively, so we create expectations, not only among the kids and in the school, but in the community. And Rotary can be here, the ones that are beating the drum for all of that. So I mentioned that to our incoming district governor here the other night. So I owe her a description on this now. So that, but this is the kind of thing. So we're at the stage here where this initiative, where it's about understanding how would it work? Because we all have to be on the same page, because if we all go out and say, okay, between now and next week, we need to get this part of this done. Everybody has to have the same agreement on what it is we're going to try to do between now and the following week, number one. Number two, that once everybody really understands in detail what we're contemplating, does everybody agree it's going to work? And does anybody see a weak spot? You know, as we go through, we have this other initiative going on here on problem solving, but there's a thing called potential problem solving, where you look at something you're planning to do and look and say, what could go wrong? What might not work out the way we want? And what, if it doesn't work out, what are the consequences? What does it mean? What would our contingency plan be if that piece of it doesn't work out the way we plan? Okay, so what I want here at this stage, because we're saying we all have to have the same understanding and we all have to believe. So right now, I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to ask you to do two things. Through your questions and comments, go and explain, ask about whatever you need, so that you really have solid in your mind what exactly, how it's exactly going to work, each piece of it, whether what's happening after we get it kicked off, what's happening to get the schools on board, and so forth, and also what happens after the school's running and this whole thing is running along. How is that working, and how does it work for an individual student, and what could go wrong, and what do we do in those particular cases? So you're on.
So sorry, Bill, do you want us to ask the questions or do the comments?
You can describe aspects of it and say, that's what I understand. Does everybody agree with me? Or you can just flat out say, I don't understand this piece. What's meant by this?
Okay, so from what I understand, we are going to select the bottom schools in the bottom 20% in terms of performance. I still have a few questions of how will we select those schools, and so what is the criteria of being in the bottom 20%, and how will we choose just the numbers that we are trying to choose? And then we will challenge the schools and the teachers and mayors to improve those schools and close the education gap. This is very simple way of saying it, but.
Okay, anybody else? You can either agree with what the previous speaker said, or you can disagree with that. You can expand upon it.
So I didn't hear everything she said because my internet cut out, but I think I had a similar question. Are we focusing on all the schools in the US that are in the bottom 20 or within a particular state and then make our way up?
I think our overall goal here is we want to take our philosophy is always work on the bottom 20%. If you always work on raising the bottom 20%, so they are no longer the bottom 20%, there's going to be a new bottom 20%. But that new bottom 20% is going to already be that much higher than the old one was because you moved the bottom up. But the thing that we have said is to get started, you need a proof of concept. You need a pilot or proof of concept to get people to believe it's doable. So we're saying here, we need a smaller group of schools. Either we can take 10 schools, we could take it all across the US, or we could go and say, look, it's easier if we can get a Rotary district or two. So if we focused on New Jersey, we have more than enough schools that are having disastrous performance. And we try to go and get 10 schools in New Jersey that are currently in the bottom 10%. And we focus for right now to make an example to demonstrate we can take all of them and bring them all for all of their students, not just for the better students, but all their students, bring them up so that now the average performance for that school fits into the top 20% in the state. So that's the concept. That's one of the concepts. Another one here in the papers that are out there about how to kick off a pilot is to go out there and try to get maybe the mayor of Newark to challenge the mayor of Baltimore to say, I bet you we can get a higher percentage of our fourth graders to be at 100% grade level in math by the end of the year than you can in Baltimore, and get a fight going on there. Who can motivate and mobilize their students the most, and then work with the Rotary clubs in the communities or around those communities. So we can take our entire district and say, let's go and help Newark win this there. But the bottom line is, if people are competing and you show them a path that gives them a leg up, if you would, or gives them a better shot. And so we would sort of be feeding both sides and showing them, here is a path that could help you and have a better performance, with the hope that they will go down one of those paths. So we have the two approaches that we could take. But right now, I think here the one that I'm sort of feeling is probably the most controllable is if we could find those 10 schools that would be willing to prove, to fight for the right to participate in the pilot, which is a good indication that they will fight for the right to come out of the pilot as top best that they achieved, that not only did they make it to the top 20%, but that once they get going on that path, they say, hey, I want to make it to be in the top 3%. Which school of those 10 can get the highest? So does that change anybody's thoughts about what it is here we're looking at?
I have a question. The 10 schools that we're gonna choose, are they from the same state or different states depending on the level of the school and their needs?
Yeah, for right now, we had said here that we would focus, if you recall, I don't know if everybody was on last week's call, but we had that discussion about we don't have to get all grade levels up. Right now, the problem that we've got is that the students, by the time they're in fourth grade or higher, their knowledge level is all over the map. So it makes it almost impossible if the students coming into a teacher's fifth grade class, if the majority of them are not fifth grade ready, that teacher has almost no chance that they're going to be able to get that fifth grade class to be grade level, have mastered that grade level, fifth grade grade level by the end of fifth grade. But if we can get all of their students going into their class to all be ready for that grade, all have the same knowledge level going into fifth grade, i.e. having mastered all the fourth grade materials, then that teacher will be able to go and get that class onto the next level. That's what you see in the wealthier schools and the wealthier neighborhoods. By and large, the kids are more or less at the same place going into a particular grade level. You do not have that in the poorer school districts. And also we said for the purpose of this pilot, obviously, if we scattered this all over the country, to be able to organize the Rotary oversight and overview to being able to help them be successful would be much, much more difficult. So I think what we're looking at right here is if we take the state of New Jersey, because that's where our district is located, we have, and the state of New Jersey has a very polarized education system where we have some of the best. I think we're second or third after Massachusetts, and it could be Connecticut. I don't know. We're definitely in the top 5 of states in the country education-wise, but we are also here, if we look at the bottom 20-30% of our schools, they are definitely in the worst, among the worst schools in the country. So that gives us a very good field for experimentation to prove the point, if you would.
So, sorry. Would it be then that after a certain period of time, all participating schools would use a standardized test to see if they reach the top %, or would it be a standardized method of evaluation?
Yeah, there's a thing here in the United States, and actually in most countries, called Common Core. That is the core knowledge that you're expected to have at the end of a grade level. In the United States, they did agree here originally to a set of tests. We would probably go and say whatever they're using right now to measure, how are they measuring where you are in the state? We wouldn't necessarily go out and say, change that. I do believe here when we're talking foundation skills, cognitive foundation skills, reading, writing, numeracy, and the like, that if you not telling people the goalposts, not giving them the goalposts to aim for is really putting the learners at a disadvantage. Right now, a lot of schools have objected to the testing, and standardized testing and multiple choice is to a degree a farce. It creates an incentive for people to go out there and learn to be a good test taker, to learn strategies for test taking. However, if you take a look at the way, for example, Khan Academy does its practice testing, which is, you can say is a test because that controls whether you can go on to the next step. And it's not just Khan Academy. I mentioned them a lot of, but they're one of many, many that are in that space. They happen to be the free one, and they happen to be the biggest one. But obviously what we would do is we would, whatever the state says, this is the way we measure achievement in the state, we're not out to necessarily change that, at least not in day one.
And would this be after a certain period of time?
Well, they take tests at the end of the year.
Oh, okay, so it's as if the competition would last the entire school year?
No, because it's the competition is to get into the program. It's almost like if you're Pfizer and you're out there testing your vaccine, who wants to be, we can take in X number of people to be volunteer testers. Okay, so in this case here, you're fighting for that right. Those schools are competing for the right to be able to even be in the program. And then once they're in the program, we're creating an artificial competition among those 10 schools to see which can get the furthest when the measurements come out at the end of the year, which can achieve the best results on that. But it's semi-artificial on that, just to keep the motivation up during the year, if you would. The reason it's a full school year is because if you're trying to say to be grade level ready, and we realized it takes a year for students to catch up everything from kindergarten through the end of 4th grade, it's going to take them that year to achieve that. Okay, more.
I have some comments and questions.
Mhm.
About the program that we're gonna build, we need specialists. Is there anyone that is gonna volunteer? Because every school and every type of children needs something, or we need يعني, specialists to keep up with them and search for their need, because each child or student is different than the other. I know we're gonna focus on some like English and math and the motivation the most, but each children will be different than the other. So do we have any volunteer specialists or sponsors to help us with that?
Yeah. Number one, we're focused only on math. Okay, and we went through last time, and there's a lot of materials out there on the website and others written as to why. There's a very interesting experiment some of you may have heard of. It was called the computer through the wall. A professor went to a slum in India and put some computers, mounted them in a wall with a mouse next to it, and just left them. I didn't tell anybody how they worked, what they were. And kids started coming up and poking at it and said, I wonder what the heck this is. And they came back, they had cameras looking at this. And in 3 months, these kids who had no instruction, knew nothing, had figured out what these computers do, how to use them. And it was amazing. When they came back and they queried them, these kids are saying here, oh, can we get a better CPU and things like that. That same professor went into a, in India, you've got, most kids go to private schools, but there's there's public schools, but they're not very good. And he went to one of those schools and he just put up a bunch of computers in the school and he left, and the kids asked what these are for, and he said, you figure it out. The schools were horrendous in their performance. He came back after, again, I think it was 3-4 months. And there was one other step on that, is he went and got a volunteer to mentor the students. And the subject was, they were supposed to learn about biology, I think it was. I think biology was supposed to be the subject. And he went and got this intern who was an accountant and said, would you go and help these kids learn biology? And this accountant says, I don't know anything about biology. And he says, that means you're perfect. Go for it. And they came back afterwards and they asked the kids what they learned. And they said, well, we really haven't learned anything, other than things like the reproductive impacts on DNA on that. And they went into all this really, really deep scientific stuff. And these kids tied the best private schools in biology at the end of that year. These kids with no teacher, no instructor, no nothing. And that professor won the $1 million or $10 million, I don't know what, from TED Talks. TED Talks issues for the most inspiring and best TED Talk. He won that for that year. So yes, there are definitely students who need a lot of special instruction, but we are in such a bad strait that it doesn't take a lot. And if our assumptions are, our number one goal is not that the student learn math. Our number one goal is that the student learn how to learn, that student learn how to teach themselves. So we don't need somebody that says, I'm the best expert on your method of learning. What we need is that mentor coach who's good at saying, well, where have you looked to try to find the answer of how you can learn this? Have you tried here? Have you tried there? Did you ask somebody? What about the kid sitting next to you? Right now in schools, what does the teacher say when you're talking to the kid next to you? Be quiet, listen to me, right? And what we want to do is say, why are you so quiet? Ask the kid sitting next to you, right? Go and ask you can ask the teacher in the next room if you want. You can ask the librarian. You can ask the policeman standing on the corner. Ask your parents, right? In other words, you take the initiative. Don't be waiting for the teacher to spoon feed you or somebody to fill the answers into your head. The main thing is to get them to learn to go find it. So if that's the goal, different students are going to look for different ways. And so one of the things that with regards to like Khan Academy, I'm hoping long-term they will open up the back end and allow anybody to add in content. Right now, the answer is, oh, you're stuck on a problem? Go ask for a hint. Still didn't do it? Go watch a video, tutorial. Still not good enough? Go ask somebody else. So, but when it comes time to go watch the video, right now, Khan Academy offers their own videos. Why can't that be like Amazon, where everybody who's made a good video on whatever that subject is, two-digit multiplication, let's say, that you find the one that works the best for the greatest number of students. And how do you know? Is because you let students rate it. And perhaps you let people rate it on what's best for the student who's learning impaired. What's best for the student who learns best with this technique or that technique? What's best for a student who's blind, seeing impaired? So that now you're able to go out there and put in and say, the ones that help me the most are this, or this particular person explains things in a way I really get it. So you can mark that as your favorites. So that when I go out there to look for a new subject, I'm going to look first for the people who teach this style or explain it like that person. So that's the main thing. But all of this is about the student driving it by going and saying, I read the textbook, but I didn't really understand that one. Where else can I look? Oh, I see here these other kids who seem to work best with the stuff that I work best with. They encourage me to look to this author or look to this video teacher. Right? So but that's down the road. The first thing we just have to start off is just going and getting our mentor coaches to just be going out there and saying, what have you tried? Where have you looked? And just going and getting the students to become used to taking the initiative and not waiting for somebody to help them. I'm talking too much again.
Bill, don't you think it's time for us, the committee, or you, or several of us, to go see our governor and get this thing going?
Absolutely.
Immediate thing.
Yeah, Sean is not on the call, but he and I have talked about that. It's been on my list. I've contacted the office of our congressman as a way to try to reach Governor Murphy, and we have a Secretary of Education, and we have an executive director of NJEA and of I think it's called the United Federation of Teachers in New Jersey, which is all your inner city teachers unions. That these are the people there that we need to go and get and say, look, how cool would it be if we in New Jersey can demonstrate that we can raise up the poor achieving students in our state to be successful and give them a whole new lease on life. I agree 100%. But to do that, we've got to go and put together the package. I have a letter, for example, to the Secretary General for our other Read for a Better World, The idea here is our committees have to get so far that they really feel I can stand behind this communication. So the communication that we want to do, which has to be very simple in the beginning, is it's got to come from the committee. So
Right.
putting together here that document that we agreed to last week to go and spend 4 days to put together that concept document. I believe all the pieces are there in documents that we've already written that I put into the shared folder there. And I could write that document pulling those pieces together. But if I write that, it's not helping you guys deepen your understanding and get to the point that you say, gee, that piece of it over here, I hadn't thought of that. I hadn't realized that. That's where I want to get you guys to, so you own it. Because once you own it, you can start changing it and you can start, getting people on board, right? So what Hal just said is really very, very key, because I believe the governor and just like the mayors that I talked to jumped on this, the governors would is greatly likely to jump on that, because he's got nothing to lose. And if we succeed, he looks like a hero. And to start off with that here, Hal, is we got to get our district governor and district governor elect, that they are not just passive, okay, well, every club gets to do what the club wants to do, because this, to be most successful, this has to be a district project. In fact,
Right.
it has to be a multi-district project. We've got 3 Rotary districts in New Jersey.
All right, so we need to talk to those governors, governors.
We need to talk to, but we need to have our ducks in a row, that our committee totally understands all the nooks and crannies of what we've been talking about, so that when they get involved in a discussion, because people are tired of hearing me talk. We need to have you guys be able to talk. We need to go and start off maybe having you guys put together a video that explains that. And if you take a look out there, I've got a PowerPoint, which is a presentation that was made to school officials in Patterson, not the top people, but some people off the school board and a principal and a couple of other people, so that maybe that's what needs to be expanded on and deepened. And then you guys put a couple of videos together. We can cut pieces so that each of you are speaking a little bit of it to keep it very exciting. And then once you do that, you'll have practiced that. So whether you're making the video available to sell it to those people, or whether you're now being called on to be in a Zoom talk and do the presentation, you'll be rock solid on it. So what's the thought about focusing here on fleshing out maybe that PowerPoint, and then you guys turning it into a video?
Sounds good to me.
Wait, Mr. Graham, can you repeat that? My internet cut out.
Same here.
The whole thing, no.
Okay.
Not the whole thing, just like the past 1 minute of what you said.
Okay. I'm just saying here, Hal said here, Hal and I were talking about going and getting the governor and the Secretary of Education of New Jersey and some of the union officials, getting them to be co-conspirators with us on making New Jersey the home of this experiment to demonstrate what we can accomplish. And we talked about we need to get the district governors, the current district governors and the next district governors of our Rotary districts. We need to get them on board, and that we need to get beyond me being the one talking all the time about this stuff. So the suggestion was made that maybe one thing here to bring you guys to where you're good and rock solid in presentation is that we create a video of you guys explaining the project, that we can use that, explaining it in a way that you're selling it. You're explaining Why is this good for Rotary? Why is this good for the state? Why is this good for any school district? And that we make that video where several of you record yourselves giving the presentation. We'll cut them together so we keep it exciting, that person A starts something and it's almost like they said this and somebody else says, yeah, and we can do this and it'll do that. And we create an excitement, and Leah's smiling because she knows we've done this on some United Nations presentations. That we then can take that. Once you have done that and it's polished and you've watched it and you're really satisfied with your presentation on this, that's something we can use to now present to the district governors or to arrange a Zoom meeting, because now that you've done that, you would be able to go and repeat that live on a Zoom video if need be. So the idea is that we take a step that we for the next week or two to say, let's put a video together of you guys explaining this initiative, how it would work, why it would work, what's the problem it's addressing, and so forth.
I really like the idea. It's very how do I say that? Very light, and people will love and understand more of what we are doing in a very light way, because not everyone will read very big paragraphs or like an agenda of what we are doing and why we need to do this.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like a video is a great way to showcase what we're doing in this committee. And also, I am like huge fan of videos personally, because I feel like they're much more better than PowerPoints, because some people don't want to sit there reading things off. They rather would prefer listening to them. So I feel like videos are great. And also, a question on the video: when are we going to start making it?
Well, let me hear from a few more here about the video in general, and then let's talk a little bit about the how.
I would advise for us first to decide who wants to be on the video, and actually, instead of texting and having a shared document on that, I would actually propose us to have 1 or 2 meetings and doing it, because I feel it's more efficient to do it actually in the meetings, in an actual call with everyone who wants to participate. But I think that the first step would be to know who wants to do it, because it's hard, since we're not able to have a call with everyone. It's hard to know who wants to be included and who doesn't, or who doesn't have time. So I feel that would be the first step.
Yeah, I agree with Leah, because when we are on a meeting or on a Zoom call and everyone is here, we feel more motivated to work, and the ideas are shared and we inspire each other, we plan, yeah. So I think that's a good idea. Maybe 2 times a week we can meet up and see whenever people of the committee can. So yeah.
I also think that those who do not want to be in the video should also have some other opportunities to help, like whether it be editing or anything else. I think it's important that we all know our designated roles.
Just one thought here to what Leah mentioned about doing it in the meetings. One of the things that we found, and it's not just us, on all the different conferences we've participated with in the last 6 to 8 months, and going beyond that, I've been participating in these online conferences here now for a good year, especially at the United Nations. One of the lessons learned is that so many people said, let's do this live. And if I just take our debate competition, the international debate competition that took place last October, run by District 3011, for example, Jennifer Jones, the Rotary president nominee, to be president for the year after next. She was supposed to speak, and but she wasn't able to speak. Either it was a connectivity problem or a problem with scheduling at the moment. There's a lot to be said to doing pre-recording. And I can tell you, as a person that edits a lot of videos, I don't care how good you feel you are to be able to do a whole series and getting it right. There's probably more that contributes to the final result of a good video that is due to the editor. Some of you may not realize it, but some of the speeches that you've made for videos that I've done, you may not have realized it, but you didn't necessarily say the words in the same sequence that came out in the video. I actually moved your phrases and clauses around in some cases to make them a little better, in addition to getting rid of the ums and the ahs and distractions like that. One of the things that I feel is a big advantage is going out and not necessarily limiting, going and casting the net as far as possible, ask as many people as possible to record a video that would have the same information in it, so the same sequence, and then you take who's best for which piece, and you clip those pieces together. That usually comes up with the best result. Now, that doesn't mean here that once we do that and we're able to come up and we got a great result, that we can turn around and have a meeting where you do it live and we can record it again live, and we get the little impromptu jokes and things like that that you don't get in that carefully pre-recorded session. So that I think speaks for that, but also for speed of getting it done. Now, the biggest challenge here is many people think the delivery of a speech or delivery of on a video is the most important part. Well, I can tell you, you can talk to Jay Leno, you can talk to any of these evening night talk show folks, and they would tell you here that 90% of the success of shows are the writers behind the scenes that wrote what the speakers speak, and make sure it fits and the timing is right and so forth, like that. So that's why it's really important here to get a whole group of people. We all agree, hey, this would be really a cool video if we could deliver all these message points like this along the way, and you script it out and then have a whole bunch of people speak it and then take the best. I've mentioned to some of you, as I used to be in Toastmasters, and how if you want to give a really effective speech, that there's times when you're going through that speech 20, 30 times before you actually give it in reality, because you're actually shortening words, changing the sequence of words around, because when somebody sits and writes a word sequence, that does not ensure that it's not going to have a lot of tongue twisters in it. So by going and trying it and realizing if you change the word sequence or swap out this word for that word for the synonym, that it's a much smoother, your tongue is able to make that transition a lot easier. So that little bit of practice can really dramatically improve the result. So I would recommend here, and I suggested, take a look at the PowerPoint that we've got on the shared folder. And that was either the one that was delivered at Plainfield or the one that was delivered at Patterson. But take that as just a point of departure and take a look and see, okay, what works, what doesn't work, what should be changed. What it doesn't have in it, it doesn't have the little segment that if you're speaking to the governor or the secretary of education from the state, it doesn't have anything that says why should they support it? Or why should a mayor support it? And so you might want to say, here's a core of a presentation, and here's the little add-ons we make depending on who the audience is. But start with that, and let's go and take over the next 3 days, 2 days, short time, because I find here the longer the time doesn't mean anybody's putting in any more time. It's just meaning more people have more time to procrastinate before they start. So I would recommend the sooner you get going, your enthusiasm layer would be higher. I'd recommend you do it this afternoon. Go in, take a look here at the PowerPoint, and let's see here what your thoughts are on that. And let's try to come in and get recommendations, changes, what you like, what you don't like. Get that over the next, today's Sunday, let's say by Tuesday evening, 10 o'clock Tuesday evening. That means you guys in Europe and the Middle East are going to be asleep already. But those of you here in the US, it'll let you wrap up your day saying, okay, we got to get it done by Tuesday night. And then we'll maybe do a couple of back and forths online, text wise, and then go and agree. Let's record that. Whatever you agree at that point, let's record that and take a day. Each person take a day to record it, or maybe 2 days the first time, so you can practice just speaking to the wall, speak to the mirror, read the text, just read it, because you might say, well, I can't read it in front of the camera. Well, just read it a few times, because that's going to get your tongue used to the movement, and until you feel smooth on it. And then you can record. And keep in mind, the really great thing of using one of these here on this is you record it, then watch yourself. I am amazed at how many people record and send in a recording, and it's obvious they never looked at themselves. And they didn't realize they had a big glob of food hanging on their cheek, and they sent that video in. So look at it, and if you're not happy with your own your own video recording, just do it over. You know, we're not talking about doing here a 30-minute video. We're talking about doing something, I would say, maybe 5 to 10 minutes. So thoughts, everybody, how do you feel about that? Is that a plan?
It's good to me.
That sounds good.
So we would do, for example, in a shared document, putting the writing, and then we have, for example, on Tuesday, if, like, I don't know, a time.
Yeah, I would say here, I will pull the that PowerPoint up to the front document, make it editable by anybody, or let's do it with comments. That's better, because otherwise somebody makes a change, somebody else doesn't know what. So anybody will be able to comment on it, put questions or comments on anything. Anybody will be able to comment on somebody else's comments. And we'll go through a couple of cycles of that back and forth to refine and turn that PowerPoint into what you think. And don't feel you have to stick with anything. You don't like, it's too much text. We need something. We need a pretty picture in the front, not just a text headline. I don't know what you're going to come up with on that, but just, you know, feel free. But keep in mind, the purpose of what you're doing is to get something to stick in the head of your audience, in the mind of your audience. That's your purpose. Your purpose is not to get them to go, wow, wasn't that pretty, right? Your goal is to get them thinking about what you want them thinking about. Big mistake. So many people, especially people who are artistically inclined, a lot of them really focus more on the prettiness. And I don't know how many of you have ever seen a TV ad and you've gone, oh, wasn't that that was a catchy ad? And somebody asks you, well, what was it for? Oh, I don't know, right? So keep in mind, it's about making sure they get it. And I can tell you an old ad trick here. I once did an ad campaign with a picture of a beige computer in the middle, and the headline said "The Green Machine." And we had so many people who wrote in, what's green about this thing? It's beige. And because that just didn't jive in their head, that a beige picture and the word green. And it's going to take me too long to find it here, but I think I told you guys about, if you're familiar with mailing campaigns, when we used to do physical mailings, the average for the industry is 0.7% or 0.7% response rate to typical mailings. I did a mailing once, I had over 22% response rate to the CIOs of 10,000 major corporations in the northeastern part of the United States. And the things I did I sent them a Christmas card in March. Now, if you get something that's an obvious Christmas card and it comes in March, don't you think you're going to be curious of who was so stupid to send me a Christmas card in March? So it caused everybody to open. And then, of course, the other thing that this happened a long time ago, and please don't give me take a sexist view on this, but back in those days here, almost all your CIOs were male. And they all had personal secretaries, real secretaries, human secretaries. And one of the things we did is we hired a whole bunch of young girls to hand address the envelopes. And so it was obvious it was in a girl's handwriting, and put a drop of perfume on it. Now, wouldn't want to do that today, wouldn't work anyway. But the thing is, that was a trick that was taught to me by market research companies in Switzerland, that is how they managed to get past the secretaries to make sure that the executives responded to the surveys. And I can tell you, 22% response rate is pretty much unheard of in the industry normally. So I'm telling you this because I want you to remember the thing you're trying to accomplish is you're trying to break through all the noise, all the distractions, and get the thoughts that you're trying to get through into the head of your audience. Okay. So now I shouldn't have taken that approach, but I'm like, got to think like that was in the days of Columbus. They had different situations to face back then. Okay, I think we pretty much covered everything. We got a to-do action for Tuesday night, right? I'm gonna take that PowerPoint, move it up to where you guys have access to it. So
I'm a
we're
little confused. So what exactly are we trying to do by Tuesday night? I know we're trying to film videos, or
no, the goal for Tuesday night is to go through the PowerPoint, and that is a starter to help you develop the message, the content. What's the story that you're trying to present to the audience to get them to understand the initiative the way you need them to understand it.
So are we going to be writing a script on that shared doc? Or
exactly. You're writing a script, but you can actually make the PowerPoint be your script or not. It depends on what you think. I'll make 2 documents out there. One document, you can go in there and write anything you want in it. The other document will be the PowerPoint that you will get comment rights. So you can take any segment of the PowerPoint, you can add a comment to it, you can add a question to it, you can make a suggestion, whatever you think is appropriate. The goal is not that it's going to happen by Tuesday night, but within the next few days after that, through a couple of iterations, the goal is to get down so we do end up with a script that can be the basis for you guys making a video. And we'll encourage as many people as possible to record that video, and then we'll cut and paste the pieces together so that we can get a nice broad cross section of young people explaining to our district governor or for the the governor of New Jersey, or the Secretary of Education, or whoever our target is, the mayors of the applicable cities, of what it is that we're trying to do here.
Okay, thank you. That makes a lot more sense.
Okay.
Wait, I have a quick question regarding
Sure.
the video. Approximately how long do we want the video to be? Like, is there any range that we should keep the video within, or?
My gut feel says you want to keep it within 5 to 10 minutes. 10 minutes would be on the max side. We've seen, if we have enough people, so we're swapping off and we can keep it exciting, we can go towards the 10 minutes. Other than that, I would say closer to 5 minutes is probably going to be best for the first introduction. Maybe down the road, we'll need some longer videos, but those are the people that are already hooked. And now we're going into the next stage of detail. Hal, what do you think on that?
Yeah, I feel like that's good, because when videos are too long and not that engaging, people tend to lose off a bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel
Yeah,
like
I think 5 to 10 is right. And any more than that, you're going to wear them out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else? Then I thank everybody here for your participation today. And I hope we're getting closer to this one. Once you guys are doing this video, then, maybe we can have here on some of these sessions, we can swap around and have some of you actually host these committee sessions as we talk about different aspects of details. Okay?
Okay.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
See ya.
Yep. Bye.
Have a good day.
Yep. Bye now.